This is the story of us, and we're just going to go through this video and then we're going to talk a little bit more about it. And maybe you can start thinking a little bit about this narrative and what you're seeing in this story.
Suicide is one of the biggest killers in Australia, particularly for those aged under 45. Mental health problems are the biggest cause of disability for all Australians. But just a year ago, none of the major parties had a serious policy on mental health. Mental health received just 7% of national healthcare funding, although it accounts for about 14% of the total healthcare burden. Advocates like Pat and myself have been working in this health area for decades. But in 2010, on the back of real community support, Pat was named Australian of the Year. We knew this gave us a great opportunity to convince politicians to tackle the mental health crisis. But the problem with mental health has always been one of silence. We knew we needed a loud campaign, a real movement of people to make a significant difference. So Pat asked Get Up members for help. Get Up members responded by creating a huge petition and chipping in donations to put Pat's message on TV. The target, of course, was the government, particularly the Cabinet and the Prime Minister, who was leading the health reform process. They hadn't heard much about mental health. We needed them to hear about it from every direction. So in addition to the TV ad, Get Up members contacted politicians, jamming their fax machines, phone operators of Parliament House, contacting their local offices. Throughout the election, mental health was really on the agenda in Get Up's town hall meetings, door-knocking drives in marginal electorates. And on election day, 1.7 million scorecards were distributed to Australians across the country. They allowed people to know where the parties really stood on mental health. In local communities across the country, there were candlelight vigils, first in Melbourne and then in over 50 towns across the country, creating real national media coverage. We all know if there's no media coverage, there's no serious interest in the issue. But as experts continued their conversations with government, they were dismayed at the result. My close friend and colleague and the principal advisor to the government on mental health, John Mendoza, resigned in protest and joined the Get Up campaign. His email to Get Up members caused the national petition to rocket to over 100,000 Australians, one of the biggest in Get Up's history. Get Up members even donated to put the petition in newspaper ads to make sure it landed on the desk of every politician. And of course, all of this created media coverage for the campaign. That's really what advocates like Pat and I need to have any serious impact on the decision makers. So in just 1 year, we moved from a position of relative silence about mental health to one of real community voice. We now have the government listening, hearing about the issue from every possible direction, and from real people in their electorates and in their communities. They knew the community pressure was high, and it wasn't going to go away. It had a voice through Get Up's campaign. When the Coalition and the Greens both updated their mental health policies, the Get Up commissioned national polls, they showed that there was a huge number of votes to be won or lost. This forced the government into real action. What was left for Pat and Simon and I was to run around Parliament House in endless negotiations with the government come budget time. We knew if they really cared and if the Prime Minister was seriously committed, they had to deliver real money in this budget. I've seen Simon carrying the Get Up petition from the Minister's office to the Treasurer, to the Prime Minister's office, to the Assistant Treasurer's office, back to the Minister's office, then to the Prime Minister again, then to the Shadow Minister, to the Green spokesperson, and then back to the Minister again. Of course, industry groups all have their own lobbyists, and in health, we've got plenty. But this time, that's where you came in. Real lobbyists for the people who've not previously had a voice, and on behalf of the community that is so affected by mental health problems. It's because of this meeting and the action that you've taken individually and collectively, from putting your name to a petition, to tweeting about the campaign, organising mental health vigils, getting in touch with your MPs, personally donating to support a huge advertising campaign, that we now have the best funding result for mental health in our nation's history.
There's no doubt here in Canberra that this has been a genuine community-based campaign.
So, I don't know, I heard a lot of echoes from our Workers' Action Centre, the strategy, the success, and I hope that you're hearing that too. But I want to, whenever we say us, who do you think the us is here? Who are they talking to? Do you hear an us there? Anybody want to volunteer who they're hearing? Did you hear it at the back? Okay, did you guys be able to understand?
I think us here extends beyond the organization into everybody who has mental disease or who has been affected.
Okay, so the us was like a whole community
The
of,
whole community, the society think they're mentally ill together.
great. Any other pieces that you can hear in this?
Well, whether you participated in a campaign or not, it sort of implicates all Australians as being part of the community, because they're talking about we now in Australia have the best mental health funding we've ever had. So whether or not you got involved, look at what happened with it. That means up for all of us that we benefit.
Yeah, that's why I really like it. It's really powerful. You know, it's speaking to the success of the movement, but it's saying the benefit that we're all deriving from it. And, you know, I really like this story of us in terms of an organization who is, you know, really sharing the ups and downs of their campaign and how it grew and changed, and how, you know, you're actually interested in each step. It's a compelling story in terms of, okay, so they made a petition, so what? You know, we've all had petitions. Okay, so then they had a spokesperson, and they had, so you start to weave all these different pieces together, and you start to see all these different players, and you start to see the role of, you know, maybe my donation in creating change, and we start to really get a picture of the success and really get to celebrate. I think that's a great part of this narrative. Any other thoughts?
Just what's the name of the organization again? Because I look at it like you look Get Up.
So there's an American equivalent called Move On. We have Lead Now, who's just started. So this is the campaigning, these large campaign organizations.
Is it all one word?
Get Up. Yeah, probably. Australia.
Thank you.
But, so this is really for what we can think about in terms of the story of us is that we have an organizational story. We have a creation myth of our organization. We have a value system that ties us together in terms of our broad supporters. So we have us within our organization, and then there's the us of the group. But ultimately, the us is always shifting. And right now, there's an us here. So if I was to identify an us in the room, I might say it's an accidental type. And, you know, this person within the organization that happened to know how to use the internet and all of a sudden was running all their social media campaigns. The thing about, so what I could say is that when I started my first accidental techie job, I was scared. I had no idea what I was doing. Just because I could, you know, show someone what Facebook was, all of a sudden I was building a website. You know, there was no expertise. There was no sense of kind of the boundaries around the work, and I had no idea what to do in terms of containing this product. And I think we can all see that in our work. You know, we've got you know, kind of trendy thinking around, you know, well, why are we on Facebook? You know, that question is one that you have to answer somehow, and that as a result, by answering the question, you are now running the new engagement platform of the organization. And but ultimately, what we need is more eyes to strategy and more ways to have strategy conversations with the higher ups who determine our workflow. And that we need the right language and tools to manage up and be able to have these conversations that talk about campaigning goals and strategies as opposed to talking about the next Twitter update necessarily and getting mired in the tactics. So that's an example of our story, and it doesn't really help for me to tell the story of you know, a separate group to you because you can't relate to it. Every time the story of us changes, as the room changes, and it's important to think about that as you're weaving the stories together about who the target is. For me, the target here was all the Get Up supporters who, you know, put up with the emails and, you know, sent in their $5 and, took little actions over and over and over, and they created this change. So that's what who this speaks to, and that everybody who was part of it wants to share it and be able to say, look at this awesome thing I was a part of. So, and ultimately we're all part of. I think that's a really good point. So we have our second exercise next, and what we're going to do here is, start naming some of these common values and vision that define us in our organization in terms of our broader supporters that we draw to our cause. And so let's go through the worksheet here. We're going to look at our niche. So we talked about what we do, but this is really, what do we do really well? Are we really good campaigners? Do we mobilize people really well on the ground? Are we really good advocates? Do we speak to government and legislators, and do we really have that relationship quite nailed down? Are we amazing educators in the community? Do we produce amazing material that people can really grasp onto? Are we really good at identifying needs and supporting people and aligning existing services and helping them access the things that they need to make their lives better? So, and then we're going to talk about how our organization came about. What was that first challenge that kind of launched this whole thing? Do we know the creation story of our organization? Was it a campaign? Was it a vision set forth by a minister who created our department? Was it what was the inspiration? And ultimately the challenge that helped to create that inspiration. And then when we talk about the campaign that we're working on, what's the actual change that we're seeking? Like really getting to the point of is this the large scale vision? What does that vision look like? And again, looking a little bit at the motivation behind that. Is the motivation one of care and support? Is it one of seeking justice in our community? So we're going to go through each one of those, and then we're going to kind of consider, okay, so is there a connection between these two stories, this story of self, like where I came from, and this organizational story? Is there any alignment here?